How's it going, guys? It's Kevin from SubiSpeed. Today we have Woo's car on the lift because we are going to be installing a set of FactionFab F-Spec lowering springs. Some of you guys may already know Woo. He is part of our sales team, so if you've ever emailed in, he may have assisted you. Now, if you guys aren't familiar with the FactionFab F-Spec lowering springs, we'll run through some specs real quick. These are going to give you a moderate drop, 1 inch in the front, 0.8 inches in the rear to level out that uneven ride height from the factory. They also stiffen your suspension up a bit. You've got 340 pounds per inch in the front and 330 in the rear. So these are going to help improve your handling characteristics and get rid of some of that body roll to make your driving experience more enjoyable. They also come with a 1 million mile warranty, so if you ever run into any issues with these, you know FactionFab stands behind their product and will work with you to resolve any issues you have. Now, with that being said, since we are going to be installing these on the car, I thought I may as well do a quick how-to for you guys, since it's been quite a while since the last one, a few years I think. So yeah, let's get into the install and get these installed on the car so Woo can get home by the end of the day. Now, obviously, the first step is getting your car up in the air and taking the wheels off. If you aren't lucky enough to be working on a lift like I am, please make sure you are using jack stands to support your car and not just the jack itself. I don't want to hear about anyone getting hurt from the car falling on them. So again, please use jack stands to support your car. Now, once you have the car up in the air and the wheels off, we're going to be working on the front first. You need to unclip the ABS line and the brake line from the strut. For the ABS line, you just need to pinch the top and bottom with a pair of needle nose pliers and pull them out from the back. You may also be able to use your fingertips. And then for the brake line, it is just a 12 millimeter bolt. Once I get that off there, I'm just gonna screw the bolt back into place so I don't misplace it. And then we can start working on the bolts that are holding the hub to the strut. Before we remove the lower strut bolts, I'm gonna go ahead and mark the positioning with a Sharpie on the top eccentric bolt so that when we reinstall this, I can get it back to as close as I can to the original position. So I'm just gonna mark on the side here and on the strut. Just out front, it's the easiest place to see. And then we can remove the two 19 millimeter bolts. Now we're going to go inside the engine bay and remove the three 12 millimeter nuts that are holding the strut to the car itself. Now, if you are doing this yourself, what I usually do is remove two of the nuts and loosen the third one so that you can reach into the wheel well, hold the strut while you're loosening that third one, and then safely pull the strut out. If you have two people, then you can just have someone hold the strut while you're loosening and removing all three. So like I said, if you are doing this yourself, you're gonna leave that last 12 millimeter nut on there. You're gonna reach into the wheel well and support the strut with one arm, and then with the other, you can loosen up the last nut. And once that is off, you can go down and pull the strut out. Now that we have the front off, we're gonna move to the rear. I'm gonna show you guys how to get this shock off. Once we have both off, then we'll get into swapping the springs. Now for the back, we're gonna remove these three bolts here. The two outer ones are going to be 17 millimeters. The end link is going to be a 14 millimeter. And then some of you guys are also gonna have another nut here that you're gonna need to remove from the headlight leveling sensor. So go ahead and remove those three bolts, and then I'll show you what to do next. Once those are removed, go ahead and pull down on the lower control arm, like so, and then we'll go up top and uninstall this shock. Now inside the trunk, you're gonna need to remove your trunk carpet And then there are 3 pop clips that are holding in this trim piece here. Go ahead and remove those, and then this can just pop straight up and out. We also need to remove the trunk lining on the sides here that are held in with 5 clips. There's one right here, one up top, one in here, and then 2 on the back inside there. Then we're going to go ahead and pull the lining out. And now we have access to the 2 14mm nuts that are holding the shock in place. Now we're going to go ahead and remove the 2 14mm nuts and allow the shock to drop down below. You can do the same trick where you just leave the last bolt and unscrew it by hand and support the shock, and you're able to safely pull it out once that nut is removed. With the front and rears off of the car, now we can work on getting the springs swapped out. Now for the front, you're going to want to throw a set of spring compressors on there, and then we're going to pop off the cover for the top hat nut, which is a 17mm, and you can either use an impact or ideally you'll use a pass-through socket and another ratchet with a 6mm Allen. So got the pass-through on there, Allen goes in there, and we can start undoing this bolt. There we go. Now do note there is a little washer here, and you also want to take note of the orientation of this perch here. You can use the angle of this one right here to kind of line up this when you reinstall the spring. That's your biggest note there. So we're just going to pull everything off. Pull the dust boot off. And now we need to replace this bump stop with the provided one. Like so. And then we're going to take the spring compressors off of your stock spring, transfer them over to the new spring, and then we can reinstall the new spring onto the strut. Now that I have the spring compressors installed onto the new FactionFab spring, we can get it installed onto the OEM strut. And then we can replace the perch, again lining it up with how we noted it came off. And then all we have to do is reinstall the little washer here and the top hat, and we're good. Once you have the top hat reinstalled, get the cover back on there, and then we can undo the spring compressors, and this is ready to go back on the car. And now we can do the rears. So for the rears, it's basically the same process, except the nut is a 14mm and it is a 5mm Allen. And although I suggest using spring compressors, you really don't need to, since these aren't under much load. So we'll get the top hat off here. We'll slide the old spring off. Take the dust boot off. And now for this bump stop here, it's actually going to look somewhat like this. You need to cut off 20mm of your stock bump stop. It's a little past the second indentation here, so just measure 20mm from the bottom of the bump stop. Go ahead and cut that off, and then you're going to reuse the larger portion. So this just goes right back on there. Dust boot goes back on. And then you you install your new springs. And then we just need to reinstall the top hat, and we are set to get these back on the car. Once you have these springs swapped out, it's just a matter of getting everything reinstalled and torqued down. I will leave all the torque specs down in the description so you don't have to go searching through the video to find them. Now that I have everything reinstalled on Woo's car, we're gonna take a look at a quick before and after so you can see the difference. Like I said, moderate drop, 1 inch in the front, 0.8 inches in the rear. It's also gonna stiffen your ride up to improve your handling and get rid of some of that body roll. If you guys are interested in a set for yourself, I will also leave a link down in the description for those springs. And I want to wish you guys a happy holiday, and I will see you guys next time.